When I was in Germany, when I go there periodically for business, I stay in Cologne. It's a real sweet-smelling city, Cologne. Yeah, I know. That was really bad, wasn't it? But actually, they do. There's a special cologne you can buy in Cologne. And in German, it's not Cologne, it's Köln, K-O-L-N. But at any rate, in Cologne is the largest French Gothic cathedral in Europe. It's enormous. It took like 600 or 700 years to complete. It rises up right next to the train station that I take the train to work every day when I'm there. And it's spectacular. And I went in and took a tour of it, and they've got all kinds of relics. It's a Roman Catholic church, so they've got all kinds of relics and statues and, beautiful looking things. They've got 3 levels of basements you can go down, and in the 3rd level of the basement you see some of the foundations built by the Romans, and down in the 2nd level they have all these artifacts and beautiful things, and on the 1st level all these jewels and really expensive stuff, and it's great. It's awesome. It's amazing. And it's right near where I would stay when I went down there. So I was there over the weekend one time, and I went one Sunday morning. I figured, well, I'm going to go over there and see what church is like there. That'd be pretty spectacular, And I went in. There's hardly anybody there. Here's this massive, massive church. Maybe 40 people total. Maybe more like 30. And about half of them are tourists, like me. You can tell because they got a camera. Most people don't bring a camera to church. How many brought a camera to church this morning? Okay. 2 out of all of this. So, what's that saying? Here's this beautiful place that does make you look up. The architecture of it just makes you look up. And I can see how that kind of architecture is meant to be inspiring. We have some beautiful churches in this city. East Liberty Presbyterian Church is incredible. It's an incredible building. But unless the Lord builds the house, it's just a bunch of stuff. Basically, what this psalm is saying is that we need to recognize our dependence on the Lord for building, guarding, and providing. Building, guarding, and providing. That's what the Lord does in your life. He builds, He guards, He provides. And we have such a tendency as humans to start taking that upon ourselves, both the responsibility for it and the glory for it. Just like Nebuchadnezzar. My power did this for my majesty. And we begin to look at the things that we build around us, or we begin to look at the way we protect the things that we build, or we look at the way that we provide for ourselves or for others, and we go, look at what I've done with my power for my glory. Well, Nebuchadnezzar ended up for 7 years living out in the woods like a wild animal because of his sin of not recognizing God. Now, I'm not saying that you might end up in the woods like a wild animal for 7 years. But it is biblical, so just take it for what it's worth. You see, we come before Him as believers not to ask Him to do these things also. That's something that sometimes we... Lord, would you please provide in this way? Lord, please take care of me in this way. Lord, please do this. The Lord has promised again and again to build, to protect, and to provide for you. When you come to be in His presence, it isn't really to ask Him for those things. It is to recognize that He is the provider of all of those things. That's really what the prayers are for. So, how does this get us ready for church? Well, first of all, it's remembering the source. Remember the source of all those things. It's God. Why go to church? I don't know. I was there last week. Remember what God has done for you. Remember what God has done in your life. Remember who He is. He is that provider. Remember, He is the source. Verse 3 says, behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. We're building an army here at Calvary Chapel. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but shall speak with their enemies in the gate. Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. When you eat the labor or the fruit of the labor of your hands, you shall be happy, and it shall be well with you. Your wife shall be like a fruitful vine in the very heart of your house. Your children like olive plants all around your table. Behold, thus shall the man be blessed who fears the Lord. The Lord bless you out of Zion. And may you see the good of Jerusalem all the days of your life. Yes, may you see your children's children. Peace be upon Israel. The second one, speaking about the blessings of the Lord. Well, to put this into context, we need to remember that family was central. Family was central, much more central and important to the lives of ancient peoples of all types. Family was so essential for so many reasons we won't really go into. You know what they are. And so it was a very family-centric society back in those days. So to say to be blessed by the Lord, to be blessed with family, with a big family. Hey, I got a quiver full of kids. I love it. That was a blessing. It's very different in our society today. I remember when our kids were young and I would go to work or meet new people and they say, oh, yeah, so you got kids? Yeah, I got 4 kids. 4 kids? Wow. You know, and there's this like sorrow and empathy and a little bit of, do you know how that happens? You know? It's very different today. 50 million, I think, is where it is today in the number of children in the United States that have been aborted since Roe versus Wade. 50 million. 50 million people who aren't alive today. Wow. That's a whole different concept of family and the value of children and the value of family. There are many sitting here right now who have gone through the breakup of family. Maybe it's a second or third marriage. Maybe it's just a separation from marriage. Maybe you're a child of a mixed family. And I believe that in America, because of all of those things, we're seeing the truth of the blessing of God in genuine godly family versus what we can come up with, even in our best shot. And I'm not here to malign you if you have experienced a breakup, a divorce, remarriage. I was divorced. Krista was divorced. This is our second marriage. God has blessed it for 30 years. And it's amazing. But the point is that family is a blessing from God. And we don't place the value on it that we should. In this day, as they were walking up, seeing that house and considering where they were going, I imagine the father looking at his family as they're walking up and going, thank you, God. Thank you for this. You have blessed. You have blessed me with this family, this support, this environment that is so good. Children were considered a source of strength, not a burden. Happy is the man whose quiver is full of those arrows. They're like olive plants. Now, that one I had to scratch my head a little bit on, until I discovered that the way that you cultivate an olive tree is that you cut a piece of one of the branches off. It has to be about 3 inches in diameter, and you cut off a piece about a couple feet long, and you stick that in the ground. And that's what you use. You do a lot of other stuff too, don't get me wrong. But it's not from a seed. If you try and plant olive trees from seed, they typically are not very fruitful at all. They're not very good trees. But if you actually part of who you are as an olive tree, cut it off and plant it, then it grows. And the other thing about olive trees is that it takes a long time to become fruitful. They live a long time. There are trees in the world, olive trees, that are thousands of years old, that are still fruitful. They're amazing. But it can take up to 40 years for the tree to first get some olives on it. You know? You plant it and your kids get the olives. And he says, like olive plants around the table. That's what the children are. They're part of me. And any parent knows what I'm talking about. Wow, whoa! I just saw me over there. Sometimes that's really good, and sometimes you go, oh man, I passed that on. Ooh. It's a blessing. Wife, like a fruitful vine, not just fruitful in the sense of having lots of kids, but fruitful in the sense of Proverbs 31. The beautiful woman that Proverbs 31 describes, who is not just a baby maker, but a homemaker, and is also going out and wheeling and dealing in real estate, is a strength to her husband. It says her children rise up and call her blessed. Man, my mom is blessed because we have received that blessing. So here they are heading to church, so to speak, and looking at what is the biggest blessing to the people of that time, their family. And what do I say about this in getting prepared for church? Count your blessings. Count your blessings. You know, it's easy for us to focus on the things we don't have. It's easy for us to focus on the things that aren't working out according to our expectation or our plans. But in doing that, we miss looking at and recognizing and thanking God for the many blessings He has given us. For the many blessings He has given us. Paul tells us, hey, if there's anything good, if there's anything noble, if there's anything of any worth, think on these things. That's what to focus our mind on. The good that God has given us. Not the thing that we desire that we don't have yet. Psalm 129 begins, many a time they have afflicted me from my youth. Let Israel now say, many a time they have afflicted me from my youth, yet they have not prevailed against me. And then he goes on and describes how he's been afflicted, like somebody's plowing on his back. And then he goes on in verses 5 through 8, and you know, let all those who hate Zion, those who have afflicted me, let them be put to shame and turn back. Let them be as the grass on the housetops. You ever walk by somebody's house and you look on their house and they obviously haven't cleaned their gutters for a while, and there's a couple of plants sticking up out of the gutter? Well, that's what he's saying here. He's saying, let them be like the plants that grow on somebody's rooftop. Nobody's going to go up there and harvest that. There's not going to be a lot to be gained from that. And the idea here is, you know what? If you look at the history of Israel, you want to talk about a persecuted people throughout history. Whoa. Whoa. Not just in the last century we think about the Holocaust. No. You look at their history throughout Europe. You look at what happened to them in the biblical times, in the Old Testament. Wow, a persecuted people, afflicted people. Let Israel now say, oh, many a time they've afflicted me from my youth. But don't stop there. Don't stay there. Yet they have not prevailed against me.